Hi guys, so I recently made a video over on TikTok about how I draw my locks like this. And I've gotten a lot of more DMs or so asking me to do a little bit more of an in-depth tutorial. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that here and now for you guys. So let's go ahead and jump into today's video. So you want to learn how to draw locks like this. You want to have a lot of texture. You want it to kind of like fall off to the side, and you still want them to look really nice, clean, and cute. So problem that you're having probably is you don't know what brushes to use. And I'm here to tell you that you absolutely do not need to purchase any brushes. But if you were to purchase some brushes, I'm going to link in the description box below the artist that you should be purchasing your ethnic, quote unquote, or urban, whatever you want to call it. But I like to just say protective or black hairstyles from. And this is how we are going to get through today's video. So I'm going to show you first how to use the default brushes, and then I'm going to teach you how to use the other brushes from the other creator who's being featured in today's video. But let's stop yapping and get right on into it. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate to you what brush that I use with like out any like special brushes for those of you who actually just want to get that out of the way. So first you're going to need a really big canvas. I use about like 5,200 by 6,000 for this one, just to kind of like, have some space. But you are going to want to click on the pen option on Clipstudio, and then you are going to want to find the textured brush. Now, you do not have to make any modifications to the textured brush. That's what I found out when I was first trying to find ways to not have to rebuy all the brushes I already purchased on my iPad, but I really loved making my locks. So yeah, first you're going to want to figure out how big you want the lock. If you want it big, then you're gonna have to use like this really big brush. But if you want them a little bit more refined, like for sister locks or really small individuals that are slightly big or medium, depending on what kind of loctician you go to, this will give you different shapes every time, literally every time. So yeah, just be mindful of what kind of locks that you want to create. Um, and I'm just using the small thing, but it doesn't matter. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make sure that the stabilization is like a smooth 10. I don't really want to like have it be all over the place, and I want it to be everywhere, so we're going to stick with that. Before anything else, we need to figure out what our highlight is going to be for our lock. So in this case, I'm going to use green because that's like the main color of my character, and this is going to be known as your base. Okay, this is your base color. And so in my case, I want my character to have the look of like seaweed. And so if you've ever eaten seaweed, it has like a very lightish yellowish green tint to it, and you're going to need this as your highlight. Ooh, Laura, I don't know how to spell, y'all. Relax. Relax on me, okay? So these are gonna be your base and your highlight. Now, again, we're gonna go ahead and get out this texture brush, and we're gonna make up like a basic shape of a lock. So, girl, wrong thing. My bad, guys. This tutorial is already going to shit. I'm so sorry about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this up because I want to make like a kind of big lock. Okay, I want to make it like really lock shaped. So you're gonna want to like have like a kind of bottom, like a kind of cone shaped bottom. Some people have like blunt like locks, some people don't. It just depends on what kind of locks and what kind of stage of the locks that they're going to be in. Sometimes it'll look like this if the lock is fairly like new and it has like a looser hair texture. I know I have like a really like a much looser hair texture, so my locks kind of look like this at the bottom. Sometimes people's locks have formed over the years and they don't really have like a lot of excess hair kind of sticking out. They have like a much more kinkier hair texture. So we're gonna have this point that kind of attaches to the actual scalp right in this area, and then we're going to have like all this space in here. So that's a little bit more mature of a lock, I suppose you could say. And then here is just like a lock that is actually at the pinnacle of its maturity, in my opinion. I'm gonna be honest, this is the kind of locks that I've kind of studied and the kind of locks that my family members have. Sometimes people pull out like little pieces to like add a little bit more texture. It is completely up to you what kind of lock journey your character is going through. Take that into consideration. And now here is the one part that's going to be a little bit more tedious, and you're going to have to pay a little bit more close attention to. You are going to want to make a new layer on top of this, and you are going to right click on that layer, go to layer settings, and then you're going to click to layer below. Now, before you touch anything, you cannot touch anything else. You want to go to normal right here. This is called the blending mode. Okay, so this blending mode is going to allow for us to add some sheen, some color on top, and it's all going to stay on top of our lock. Okay, so I always turn on add glow so that this adds a little bit more actual like color, and it actually looks like it's reflective. But that's not what's really going to make this the pinnacle of affectability. But first you want to go ahead and grab your highlight, and we are going to run over to this specific brush. So the brush I usually use is going to be the watercolor. This is going to be a watercolor type of brush. And remember, this is all already on Clipstudio Paint. And I like to use the flat watercolor brush. Now, here is a little bit more meticulous because depending on how much highlight and how little highlight you want, you're going to change the actual pixel, like per pixel, that you are going to use for your highlight. Now, here's the part that's a little bit less tedious. I'm gonna be real, like it's not as hard. Is you are going to do C motions going in an upward formation. Now, remember to change direction based on the actual like location of the lock. Like if your lock is going to the left, if your lock is going to the right, it will change varying on that and that alone. So you want to make these very loose and very light strokes, and then as time goes on, you're going to actually have to like turn your actual canvas and maybe like zoom in for this part, because we're going to add a little bit more sheen in other places. And so in that case, we are going to go in and we're going to press a little bit harder like this. And you need to keep it to the center of your lock, wherever the highlight was, just so that you're not like disturbing anything else. And you'll just change it as you see fit and as you go. So you're gonna eyeball this, but this is the general motion that you should be making. It should be little C shapes going upward, just like this, like so, like that. Okay. And you know, it will change again. It's completely up to you. It is at your discretion however you do this. This is just me in the tutorial going over how this works. All right, so here's the part that matters a little bit more. It is going to be your blending. So now we're going to go to the blending tool, and the blending tool I specifically use is called the Painterly Blend. This blend has the semi kind of same shape of the other brush for the actual applying of the like highlight, but this is a little bit more splattered and scattered. In this case, depending on, again, how big or how small your lock is, you are going to be using C motions, and you are going to be trying to spread this all across the lock. It is absolutely okay to leave some dark spots, because again, when you're usually looking at your lock isn't going to be completely covered in sheen and shine all the time. So we're going to use a C motion to blur this out while also mixing it with our actual coloring of the lock. And if you have any bits and pieces that are kind of like off on the side, that's actually really good that you kind of get in on them too, so it makes it look like it's more cohesive. You don't want to press too hard on this part, but you definitely do want to do a lot of blending so that it still looks like a lock. And in this case, sometimes you might want to lower the opacity on the brush if you're a little bit heavy-handed, because right now I'm kind of being a little heavy-handed here. That is completely my bad, but you see the general shape and what I'm talking about here. So again, there's a lot of dark in there, and so you can go in um, and kind of make lumps and bumps as you see fit. Okay, so with that being said, we have the basic shaping, we have all of the actual like coloring, and that all goes in. Now, varying locks and different hair types of locks look completely different from person to person every single time. So, one person could have 4C hair, and in some people's cases, they say they got 4-7 hair or 4Z hair. It depends. So, your locks are going to have varying like variations and parts that pop off and pop out. Now, the actual more really important part here is we're going to go back up here and grab the color of our base. And this is kind of how I've gone in behind myself and kind of like cleaned up the actual locks a lot, because I was like, okay, well, I like the way that the locks look, but they just look too clean. Like they look way too clean for my liking. So sometimes what I'll do is like I'll go over the lock with a new layer as I created here. And sometimes I'll get the brush like ever so slightly, but still comparative to the locks that already exist. And I'm gonna go in. Like I'm gonna go in, and sometimes I'm going to add like a little bit of extra. Sorry, I had to hiccup. Oomph. And like you can kind of just like go in like this, add in some color variation. Some parts of the lock are a little bit different than others, and sometimes there's like little bubble pockets on the actual lock itself. So like if you have like a clump of hair piling up somewhere in the lock, you want to emphasize that, and you want to actually draw this in. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the Gaussian blur effect, and you're going to go to filter, blur, and click on Gaussian blur. And so in this case, I'm going to kind of like eyeball it, like what is kind of acceptable for my actual lock and what's indicative of like kind of like my existing style. And I'm just going to go in like this. And so, sometimes it's a little bit much. So if it's not like really showing a whole bunch of the dark spots, then that becomes a problem. But this is actually really good. And I'm also going to want to right click on this layer sometimes, and I'm going to do a layer setting, and then I'm going to clip it down below. Now, sometimes you don't have to do this if you want to add more texture. You want to add more like curl to the lock, especially on this lock right here, this lock to the very, very left. If there are a lot of pieces that are coming off and the lock, you might actually want to follow direction of the lock pieces that are coming off, and that'll add more depth and make it look a little bit more realistic. And so we're going to go back over to our painterly um, blend brush, and we're going to blend it in some more and kind of like incorporate it a little bit more cohesively into the actual lock. You're gonna actually want to, if you have like a lot of dark spaces, like specifically for the bubble part, you don't want to be too rough, because you're going to lose that actual like incorporation of like, the details. You don't want to lose any of the details that you just fucking added, because that shit would actually get you tight. I'm not gonna lie, that shit actually got me tight the first time. Or sometimes I go in with one of my added brushes. This is just my added brush, but because I'm gonna do this with the basic brushes, I'll go in with like a tiny little brush, and like I'll clean it up like this. But usually I just go in with another layer. Like it's going to take a lot of layers to make this look actually pretty fucking good, in my opinion. I'm very picky and very particular about the way in which I actually do my locks, because like I want them to read cohesively. I want somebody to be like, okay, those are sushi baddies locks. Like I can tell the difference that this is a sushi baddie lock. This is her style, and this is like how she kind of does it. And it'll kind of be a lot easier this way as well. But you just really want to like hone in on if you're making bubble pockets of hair, you need to like get in there, y'all. Like get in there. Sometimes you have to work a little bit harder. You have to like actually like get in there a little bit harder with some of these brushes. Also remember, like sometimes if you have a lot less light on one side, there's going to be like a lot of more darkness over here, or like if you have a stray hair that's kind of like flying off the edge and you want to like add in that. So it's a lot of rendering parts. All right, so now you're gonna wanna add some more detail. I know this video seems kind of long, but the thing is that when it comes to locks and you want them, like you really want them to look a certain way and you want them to actually fit with your art style, you have to find different ways to actually incorporate this stuff into your art style. So of course you can use the the navigation system that I've kind of built into the lock, like the actual like videos. So like you can kind of like skip to certain parts that actually interest you, like adding flyaways and like actually figuring out how to do the shaping. And sometimes you can even do some other stuff. But ultimately, we're going to be doing a lot of blurring. Like it's literally just going to be a whole crap ton of blurring. But just being sure to be cautious of how much blurring you're doing. Sometimes you want to lower the opacity on this, and sometimes you actually want to blend these out in the middle, some cases. But ultimately, you are completely done now. And honestly, this is how you do it without any of the special brushes, like without any of them at all. So this is possible, this is doable. You can add even more dark spots right here, kind of like how I did in my original splash page here. I did a lot of different textures in here sometimes because I was using other brushes, but again, that's going to be for the next section where we're gonna need a brand new piece of paper. So, editing sushi girl, do your thing so we can get on with the get on. Okay, guys, so I've already set up our base and the highlight colors that we're going to be picking from and needing. Again, you can change these colors. You are going to have a little bit of basic idea of color theory, or you can pick out a color palette. Girl, it do not matter. It do not matter. But I'm going to show you the brushes that I use by Vegalias. I don't even know if I say this woman's name's right. So girl, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But she creates a lot of really nice Afrocentric hairstyle brushes. And then of course she has like some regular, like, basic hairs, like just straight or whatever. But the thing is, today we're going to be making locks. So we're going to be using her lock brush. And specifically, honestly, look at all these brushes that she has. I actually put them all into a braids and curls pattern and setup. I will again be linking her brushes down below if you want to go grab those. But I like to pretty much use this outline lock brush. Now the setup with this is a little bit wonky because sometimes your lock will look like this if you're not careful. So the way that you combat the outline so that you don't have this is you are going to go ahead and you are going to click over here, and then you're going to grab the actual color of your base, and then you're going to click over here and you're going to go back and get that color of your base. Okay, we're going to get that again. So now your lock looks cohesive, it looks clean, it looks like it does what it's supposed to be fucking doing, and it's not doing extra shit, nothing extra. Okay, now this part, this is what I've been talking about. Y'all need to make these big brushes. Okay, now this part is actually really important because Vegalias brushes are actually extremely small, honestly. But that's okay because we can work with this. So this kind of helps me a little bit more create more realistic locks, especially distressed locks, like locks that are a little bit on the I need a repair side. Cause hell, I need some repairs, bitch. I need a repair. So you can make like as many shapes and sizes, and I'm going to create all the shapes, and then we're gonna come right back because girl, the video probably already too motherfucking long. Okay, so if you don't like the bubbly look, like I really don't, I'm gonna be honest, these are kind of cartoony-ish. So you're gonna go ahead and use the same exact methods that we used previously with the other brush that didn't require any special brushes. And you're gonna go ahead and make it just as big as your other brushes. You're gonna go in and you're gonna kind of like make lumps, bumps, and shapes, and you're gonna kind of go like this over the existing locks to kind of like, you know, mellow them out. But again, if you have a cartoony style, then honestly, this brush is going to be perfect for you to just open up and use. You don't have to do anything extra. But I do go for a semi, like, sort of realistic way of doing my locks. So I just go over this to like make sure that the lock that I'm creating is still conducive to my art style that I'm working in at the time. So, yeah. Okay, so we have 4 different distressed locks. Okay, these are very distressed indeed. Actually, my lock actually I have one that looks just like this one in real life. Um, and it fell out because I ripped it apart, but it doesn't matter. So these are the locks that we're using. Now you're probably thinking, Sushiana, okay, Sushiana, what kind of brush are we gonna be using? Are we going to be using the same old brush from the brush pack with the watercolor? Now I can, so I'm gonna show you what that looks like on about a couple of these brushes. Now we're gonna be moving the thing around because girl, I need to move around. Okay, a girl needs to move. So let me go ahead and show y'all what that's gonna look like. Okay, so this is what I did for the typical shape and coloring of the lock that I usually do if I use the style with the regular shading method. And so now we're actually going to get into what I typically do, and I'm actually going to show you guys the more directional turns because this is the whole C girl. Like if the lock was on the floor, Lord, okay? So also this is gonna kind of show like how the light actually interacts with them. Like if I have like a source of light over here, but like the bottom of the lock isn't getting any light. So this is gonna be a little bit trickier to do. So you're gonna have to follow along, okay? Like really be in it to win it, okay? I don't know how else to explain this. So first, because we're adding some color, I like to sometimes use the regular G pencil soft brush, okay? So if the light's coming from here, I'm going to kind of like make like a general shape like this, okay? And because the light is hitting from here and the rest of the lock is down here, that doesn't mean that this whole part of the lock isn't going to get any light. I'm just going to do this, like the C motion is going to go like this. And remember, I'm going to go over this in a C motion over the existing lines. There's also not going to be any light like right here, so the light really is just ending right here. And so you're going to go in and you're going to like get in there some more. Then I will go back in with the light brush right here, and I'll just like really zoom in and really get in there and like turn my stuff. But yeah, this actually gets a little bit more tricky, and like sometimes I zoom in. It just really depends on how like skilled I'm that day. Like sometimes I just draw my locks how I draw them, but if I want like actual cohesiveness, I want everything to look exactly the same. I want things to be looking synonymous. This is exactly how I am doing that. And sometimes like if like the lock is folded over but the light is still hitting certain parts of the lock, sometimes you can add in some stuff right here, if that makes sense. Like you'll be able to like show some light like in this little pocket like in a typical manner, like where you're just doing little C's like this. But I'm not going to go in with a whole bunch of like light because again, it's still significantly bunched over and huddled over this. Now this is going to be crazy. You're gonna probably look at me like, Sushi, how the hell are you going to get this done? Okay, girl, watch and learn. It's called trust the fucking process, okay? Because I don't know shit, okay? I'm teaching y'all what I know about my preferred method, but girl, I don't know anything. I just went to school for this. And then I taught myself how to do this part because ain't nobody was teaching me how to do no locks. I'm so sorry about it. Ain't nobody in my little white ass art school was gonna teach me how to do locks, and I had to teach myself. And so like I have to go in, guys, I'm so sorry. Let's get back on track. So I have to go in and like really clean up these light parts because again, you know, this is like the part of the lock that you wouldn't see. Like right here, it would be like this part right here. And so there's a lot of this going in. Like we gotta blend a lot. And I do mean a lot without like tarnishing the actual integrity of the shade, like the actual lights, like light part, if that makes sense. So sorry guys, y'all know I'm actually kind of shit at explaining, but I try to use some of the correct terminology to a certain degree, and then sometimes I just like make my own shit up. So take that into consideration and take it with a grain of salt. Now let's go ahead and go in here. And sometimes I'll go in and erase with like a really soft brush and clean it up so I can like not have too much light some places, and sometimes I make it really big and I lower the opacity and I just dab on it to kind of like break up the lighting a little bit. But ultimately sometimes if I'm feeling extra bold, I'll go in with this over top and add that in as extra color and variation. And of course we're gonna get back to blending because we gotta make it look like it's supposed to be there on purpose and not on accident. Now you see how like the drastic differences, but it still looks similar. Uh-oh. How did I do that? That ate down. I'm gonna leave that there. That's cute. I didn't know I did that. But like you see how like the underbelly of the lock isn't like completely overshadowing, but it looks like it has a lot of texture and it's being wrapped around by the darker parts of the lock that you usually can't see. That's the effect that you want to go for whenever your locks are like coiled like that and like you can't really see the full lock from like a quote-unquote front view. This is what you would look at it from like a side view, and it looks kind of like a little croissant. It's giving croissant. If it's not giving croissant, you're not doing it right. So you need to make sure that you are still focused on it giving croissant. Okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same page. So now what we're gonna do next to kind of get this to look a little bit more lock like before, we are now going to go in and we're going to add some like little extra bits and pieces and bobs and ends. But you know what, I think I'm gonna do that later so I can kind of show you what I did here over here. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and speed this part up, you know what I mean? Okay, so right here, you're going to notice that there's a very drastic difference between the two locks. So, ooh, girl, relax, fucking relax, lock in. So sorry, Clipstudio Paniana has lost her mind. So in this particular case, we are going to notice that these are a little bit more dull. These are usually used for like darker environments, and then I add like actual lighting, and then I'll go over it and change it and like move it around. And then right here in this area, you know, of course, there's going to be a little bit darker depending on the actual light and environment. But because, you know, we just said that the vague lighting will be coming from, oh, girl, give me a minute. So sorry about it. So sorry. So we said that the light was going to be coming from like things like this direction, if that makes sense, right? So of course it's going to be a way lighter. But again, in this environment, if it's gray and the light is gray, it's not going to be that much lighter, I'm gonna be honest, unless I add like a very harsh light that's going to hit it. So it's going to, again, vary. But these are head on like positionings. Like this is where they're going to show me exactly the light is coming from right here, like in these areas, like it's going to be hitting. And that's where you're going to see again a lot of like the actual like lighter parts that we made with those C shapes. You can also turn these opacities down at your own leisure. Okay, you can make them as dull or as dark as you'd like them to be. You do this kind of just at your own again, your own discretion. But guys, I'm gonna be honest. So we learned how to specifically make locks with brushes, a mixture of brushes from a paid pack, and then I taught you guys how to make brushes specifically just from the actual Clipstudio Paint brushes that are just available to you. Honestly, I already told you guys, I'm gonna put the actual brush pack in the description box below if you guys prefer that art style of lock. Also, if you wanted a bit smaller, a bit shorter, a more condensed art tutorial, you could go look at my TikTok, which will also be linked in the description box below. It will be linked. But yeah, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming through and learning with me today. I know this is kind of a long-winded video, but I'm going to catch you guys on the flip side. You already know what I'm about to say. Don't fight, don't bite, and if you do, don't get caught. And if you tell them I told you to do it, I'm going to lie on you, okay? I'm gonna lie on you. So I'm gonna catch you guys later. Bye.